What's up, everybody? We're going live today here on Friday. Bear with me. It's just me in here, so I don't have a producer. I don't have anybody in the background that I can talk to throw up B-roll and stuff like that. I'm trying to get used to everything with this live software and all that good stuff. So bear with me. I hope this is smooth. I've refrained from doing it in the past just because the quality hasn't necessarily been there with the camera and the sound and syncing it all up. But I want to continue to do these live shows. So once again, just bear with me and let's see here. Hopefully it goes well, and I can continue to jump in here live with you guys consistently. See, like right there, like why am I doing a thumbs up like on the screen? I don't know. In any case, let's get rolling. A lot to get through today. Some important stuff to get through today with regard to free speech and just everything going on. So Ben Shapiro, he sat down for an interview on Gavin Newsom's podcast. Ben was asked about his Amfest speech, where he called out Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly. His answer reveals that he still just doesn't get it, as you're about to see. And I'm going to show you what the real problem is here. What Ben refuses to address is the dangerous and frankly anti-American, not just rhetoric, but behavior and activity on display at both the Jerusalem Post conference that just took place in Miami, calling for the jailing of anyone who is critical of Jews or Israel by a PragerU influencer. And the crowd applauds this for his speech. And I don't think anybody caught this, but when the camera pans out from the speaker to the crowd, it catches someone who claims to be America first, and the audience nodding along to that. Oops. And the CEO of the ADL openly bragging about the fact that they have 40 full-time analysts working 24/7 to monitor extremists online regarding the Jews and Israel. He says that they compile data and report it to the FBI, which catches Kash Patel in a lie by accident. Let's get into it. I'm Zach Costello. All right, so we're going to lead off here with this clip of Ben Shapiro explaining to Gavin Newsom why he chose the moment at Amfest to call out Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Steve Bannon, and all who refused to condemn them. Listen to his answer. We'll pick it apart, and then I'm going to show you the things that are coming out, which makes it clear that Ben just doesn't get it here.
And a pretty somber time. Charlie's widow was there. You had a lot of, the sort of branded celebrities in the right, and Candace Owens was there. And
Candace was not there, to be fair.
But became part of the conversation.
She definitely was part of the conversation.
And Bannon and Megyn Kelly, others, so many
Tucker.
others. Certainly Tucker Carlson. So give us a sense. What did you say, and why did you say it? And why did you choose that moment to say it?
So the reason that I chose the moment to say it is that Candace Owens, who has some issues of her own, she has been saying since Charlie's death that there was effectively a conspiracy to kill him. She has implicated pretty much everybody, ranging from, believe it or not, French intelligence to the Israelis to various friends and family members, possibly, of Charlie in his murder. Yeah. And there have been an enormous number of people in the influencer space on the right who have gone along with this, who have massaged it, pretended not to notice it, tried to defend her, tried to pretend that it was an aspect of, that questioning her was an aspect of free speech, which of course was a violation of free speech, rather, which of course it isn't. Criticism is not a violation of free speech. It's a form of free speech.
Thank you.
And so I got up on stage and I basically gave a speech saying, our responsibility as people with influence in the public space, we have some responsibilities, and those responsibilities include truth above all. Yeah. We ought to be clear about what we believe. We should not hide the ball. We should not allow, quote unquote, friendship to trump what is true. Just because you're friends with someone does not alleviate the responsibility for you to say when they're doing something that is wrong or immoral. We should not engage in audience capture. Just because our audience wants us to say a thing doesn't mean that we ought to say it. And we ought to ensure that we are held responsible for the things that we say, and also the people that we have on and how we question those people. So, of course, anybody has the right to have anybody on their show who they want, and then they should treat those people how they want to treat those people. I mean, if I were to have on somebody who's, in a deeply adversarial position, I think what's great about this conversation is you can see how adversarial we are with regard to some of our positions, but at the same time still have the discussion. Yeah. If you are going to have on, for example, as Tucker Carlson did, Nick Fuentes, who is a self-stated Nazi apologist, and then you're going to treat him with kid gloves, then you ought to be held responsible for that in the court of public opinion. And if we as influencers do not do that job, if we lie to you, if we fib to you, if we make predictions which we are then not held responsible for, if we hide behind quote unquote just asking questions, this is one of my bugaboos. I hate it. You hear this a lot in the influencer space, mostly on the right, but some on the left as well. This sort of, I'm not putting out a theory. I'm just asking questions. Well, there's a difference between seeking answers and just asking questions. Seeking answers, that's what questions are for. It's to get better information, more clarification. I should have a better idea after the question of the answer than I did before. Just asking questions is usually a guise for willful ignorance and for positing a theory without having to carry the responsibility for positing that theory. So if I say, I'm just asking questions about whether you have peculiar sexual proclivities, I don't have any evidence, I'm just asking the question. And then you say, well, where is that even coming from? Listen, I'm just asking questions. I'm not asking questions. I'm obviously attempting to impute something to you. This is what this speech was about. I named names in it. I mentioned Tucker Carlson. I mentioned Megyn Kelly, who had sort of gone out of her way to massage Candace Owens in her pursuit of bizarre conspiracy theories about Erica and Charlie's murder. I mentioned Steve because I think Steve has been doing many of the same things. And so that was the speech at Amfest.
And that you felt it was necessary to name names as opposed to imply. You just felt it was important to be clear.
Yes, because I think that people should know exactly who they are listening to, particularly since they're going to hear from some of those people at the same event. And so I thought that people should, be forewarned about the people they're going to hear about. Then they can make their own decisions and determine whether my assessment of those personalities is accurate or inaccurate.
And the reaction was exactly as you anticipated?
I think that the reaction in the room was, I think, overwhelming because a lot of people were very upset that people had been saying this about Charlie's murder, which again was carried out by all available evidence by a person motivated by hatred of Charlie's position on transgender issues in particular. And all the evidence points to Tyler Robinson as being the person who shot Charlie Kirk. And so I think that a lot of people in the audience were deeply offended and upset, correctly so, at the kind of specious conspiracy theories that have been promoted by this group of folks. The sort of blowback that came afterward was really interesting. There were a lot of people who obviously were very upset. Many of the people who I named, I'm not surprised, came back and fired back. I will say that I don't think any of them actually argued with the point that I was making. They seemed to make collateral attacks, imputing intent to me, suggesting that my speech had something to do with Israel, which is funny since I didn't mention Israel one time in the entire speech. And I found that sort of bizarre. And then obviously you've seen, sort of the influencer wars going on. But the whole point that I was making is here's a principle. Either you uphold the principle or you don't uphold the principle. If you don't uphold the principle, I'm going to call you out for not upholding the principle. And it really is quite simple. It's not about friendship. It's not about whether we go fishing together. None of that has anything to do with the principle that's at stake. Because if we want to have an honest discussion with one another, then we actually should be honest about the principles that we hold. And if we disagree, we disagree. But clarity before agreement, as my friend Dennis Prager says.
Okay. So first of all, Ben says regarding Candace Owens that his problem is too many on the right are refusing to condemn her for all of the conspiracy theories that she has brought forth regarding the Charlie Kirk investigation and assassination. Then in the next breath, he says that we should be pursuing truth and we have a responsibility to do so in the public sphere. Well, I totally agree with that, Ben. And that is why many support much of what Candace Owens is doing, looking into the Charlie Kirk assassination. Not all of us believe that Tyler Robinson was the lone wolf assassin. Ben says criticism is not a violation of free speech, and I agree with that too. However, a coordinated attempt to deplatform calls for censorship, appealing to government authorities, using lawfare to threaten, and medically diagnosing someone is not criticism of an argument. There are many reasonable people who do not accept the mainstream narrative about Tyler Robinson. Seeking answers, which apparently is an acceptable replacement for asking questions, we are seeking answers about whether he was influenced by domestic or foreign operatives, whether that be deep state actors within our own or the Israeli government. This doesn't make you an anti-Semite. or delusional or a conspiracy theorist. Ben finishes this talking about the principle that must be upheld: open discourse, criticism of ideas, debate about issues, the mechanism of free speech, I assume, is the principle that he's talking about right there. What say you then, Ben, to PragerU influencer Shabos Kestenbaum, who says people in America should be jailed for anti-Semitism? And I put that in air quotes because you're about to see. I'll tell you why this is such dangerous rhetoric. And pay attention to the end of this. Tell me who you notice nodding along.
You will never be able to defeat racism because racism is a mentality and an ideology, right? You can't dictate your way out of how people think. What you can do is you can tell a bus driver in the 21st century that if you tell a black guy to go to the back of the bus, we will haul your ass to jail that night. Yet for whatever reason, when it comes to anti-Semitism, when someone commits an anti-Semitic act, we don't send them to jail. Instead, we get the ADL to say, let's bring them to a Holocaust museum, which A, gives them pretty bad ideas, and B, doesn't solve anything about the fundamental issue that they violated the law. So the way we solve anti-Semitism is pretty goddamn simple, and I'm really besides myself that we don't push for this with all the major Jewish organizations. When someone commits a crime, stop sending them on El Al flights. That will make them more anti-Semitic, I guarantee it. Send their ass to jail. It's not complicated. I don't care if people think that we have horns. I don't care if people think we control the banks. I don't care if people think that we run Hollywood. I don't have them think what they want. What I care is when they throw rocks through the synagogue. And the only response when people throw rocks through a synagogue is prosecuting them, which is why when Claudine Gay, the serial plagiarist at Harvard University, was discriminating against the civil rights of Jewish students, we filed a lawsuit. We took the law into our hands. And I encourage any student, whether you are Jewish or Christian, anytime your civil rights are being violated, hold your universities accountable. For those of us who live in New York, anytime Mamdani violates the law or Students for Justice in Palestine violate the law, stop sending them to Holocaust museums, stop sending them to ADL dinners, send them to jail instead.
So, like, I've heard that dude talk before. Slow down, man. Slow down. Like, you can make your point without just reeling off language. But I don't know if any of you guys notice this, but you know who is nodding along to this? I mean, this is frankly dangerous, unconstitutional, anti-American rhetoric right there. Look at this. You know who's nodding along to this? I'm going to bring this up. Look at this. You know who that is? Look at that. You know who that is? That's Adam Sosnick from the PBD podcast right there, nodding along. That's him nodding along to that. I knew he was Jewish, and I have no issue with that. But anti-American, that's a surprise. What is so dangerous about this way he's talking, and that what's so dangerous about this is the way that he's talking and the way that these terms are used and defined in our modern times. I speak out as a white man who's proud of my heritage and my family, and it makes me a racist. It makes me a white supremacist. If I believe the feminine genius is on display at home, I'm labeled as a misogynist. If I do not agree with Zionism, the belief that the Jewish people have a biblical entitlement to the land of Israel, and express as a Christian that I do not believe that, or I accurately describe the history behind the crucifixion of Jesus, I'm called an anti-Semite. If my disagreement with their worldview disturbs them or hurts their feelings, they'll wage lawfare against me and put me in jail based on their definition of the terms. Oh, and don't think this isn't happening. The CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, which is an NGO, I'm going to get to that in a second, founded to, well, measure, track, monitor, and disrupt. Listen to who? He is bragging about this, and I don't think he realized this, but he accidentally actually exposed Kash Patel as a liar. Listen to this.
When we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full-time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists. We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency, podcasts, short-form video, Wikipedia, LLMs. We monitor these people, and we share the intelligence with the FBI. You saw last month, you heard about the thing that happened at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Our analysts investigated what happened. They said they were Koreatown for Palestine, this group of people. They weren't. We were able to ascertain they were from a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Turtle Island is how like left-wing activists refer to the United States. They don't call it America, they call it Turtle Island, like the Iranians call it the Zionist entity, right? They only call it by its name. The Turtle Island Liberation Front, we gave them a whole dossier. What is Turtle Island Liberation Front? What are their ideas, their goals? Who are they? We identified the people who were in the synagogue. This was on Wednesday, December the 10th. On Monday, December the 15th, this is going to ring a bell. Kash Patel announced they cracked a terror ring where they arrested 4 people who were planning New Year's Eve bombings. Turtle Island Liberation Front. At least one of the people I know for certain was in the building at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, vandalizing it and disrupting the event. So we're monitoring left-wing radicals like the DSA and the anti-war crazies and the pro-Palestine crazies. We're monitoring right-wing extremists like white supremacists, armed militia groups. We're monitoring political Islamists and Christian nationalists, all of them. And then we train. We're the largest trainer of law enforcement in America, extremism and hate. We train 20,000 officers every year.
Monitoring anti-war crazies, right-wing extremists, political Islamists, and Christian nationalists. You guys get it, right? You get that these terms and the way that they use them. Are these the guys who also notified the Biden FBI that Catholics were domestic terrorists? 40 analysts working full-time 24/7 to monitor Americans online, including social media accounts, bank accounts, cryptocurrency transactions, media views, LLM usage, which is like ChatGPT, large language model usage, and they relay this information, all that you're doing, to the FBI. They are the largest trainer of law enforcement in America. And isn't it funny? He's bragging about the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Like it was apparently a good thing. And the FBI touted themselves for stopping a New Year's Eve terrorist attack. Kash Patel, if you remember this, I'm going to bring this up. Look at this. Remember this. Kash Patel announced in October of last year, after the ADL had labeled the Charlie Kirk-led Turning Point USA an extremist group. I thought Charlie Kirk was a never-wavering Zionist, though. You have the ADL here, who's a group that was formed to combat anti-Semitism, labeling Turning Point USA under Charlie Kirk as an extremist group. That's interesting, isn't it? So, but the important thing is I guess Kash Patel's lying because the FBI is clearly still working with the ADL. So did Kash Patel just say that to, I don't know, save face amongst conservatives after Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Look, the ADL is an NGO. We've heard the NGOs have been in the news all over the place. A non-government organization who, guess what, receives federal money, federal grants for anti-terrorism efforts. What's anti-terrorism? Who are the terrorists now? You see my point in this. This principle that Ben Shapiro is so fiercely fighting for. What exactly is that? I'm Zach Costello.